12 Stoic Rules to Let Go of Anyone Without Losing Your Inner Peace. Stoicism Philosophy. Cinematic Introduction. One of the hardest lessons in life is realizing that not everyone is meant to stay. Some people enter your life for a season. Others arrive to teach a lesson. And some leave without giving you the closure you desperately wanted. Yet what causes most suffering is not the departure itself. It is our resistance to it. We hold on. We replay conversations. We revisit memories. We imagine different endings. We wonder what we could have said differently. What we could have done better. What we could have changed. And while we remain trapped in the past, life quietly moves forward without us. The Stoics understood something many people spend years trying to learn. Your peace should never depend entirely on another person staying. Because people change. Circumstances change. Relationships change. And sometimes, despite your best efforts, people leave. But your inner peace does not have to leave with them. Today we are exploring 12 powerful Stoic rules that will help you let go of anyone without losing yourself in the process. Stay until the end because the final rule may completely change the way you view loss, attachment, and emotional freedom. And if you want more deep Stoic wisdom, powerful mindset lessons, and life-changing philosophy, subscribe to Focus and Conquer. Now let's begin. Rule 1. Accept that people belong to themselves. One of the greatest causes of emotional suffering is the illusion of ownership. We begin to believe that certain people belong to us. Our partner, our friend, our family member, our companion. But the Stoics taught that every human being ultimately belongs to themselves. There was once a father who loved his son deeply. As the boy grew older, he developed dreams that would take him far away from home. The father resisted. He wanted his son to stay, to remain close, to follow the path he had imagined for him. Years of tension followed. Arguments replaced conversations. Frustration replaced understanding. Finally, an elderly neighbor shared a simple truth. You were given the privilege of loving him, not owning him. Those words changed everything. The father realized he had confused love with possession. True love allows freedom. Possession creates suffering. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that people have their own paths, desires, and destinies. The moment you accept that others belong to themselves, letting go becomes less painful. Because you stop trying to control what was never yours to control. Rule 2. Do not chase those who choose to leave. This lesson is painful. But it is liberating. When someone repeatedly chooses distance, chasing them rarely creates closeness. There was once a young woman whose closest friends slowly became distant. Messages became shorter. Calls became less frequent. Conversations felt forced. Instead of accepting the change, she chased harder. She called more, texted more, explained more, tried harder. But the more she pursued, the further the friendship drifted away. Eventually, exhausted and heartbroken, she visited her grandmother. After listening quietly, the older woman said, "Never beg someone to remain where they no longer wish to stay." That sentence transformed her perspective. Because she finally understood something important. Relationships require mutual effort. Not one person carrying the entire weight. The Stoics believed dignity comes from accepting reality. Not fighting it endlessly. If someone repeatedly chooses to leave, respect their decision. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because your self-respect matters too. Sometimes letting go is not weakness. Sometimes it is wisdom. Rule 3. Stop romanticizing the past. One of the mind's favorite tricks is remembering only the beautiful moments. When someone leaves, we often replay the highlights. The laughter. The adventures. The good conversations. The moments that felt magical. But we conveniently forget the disappointments. The arguments. The tears. The loneliness. The emotional exhaustion. There was once a man who spent years grieving the end of a relationship. Every day he revisited old memories. He convinced himself he had lost the perfect person. One evening, a close friend asked him a simple question. If it was so perfect, why did it end? The question stunned him. Because for the first time, he stopped viewing the relationship through nostalgia. He began seeing the full picture. The good and the bad. The joy and the pain. The love and the incompatibilities. The Stoics believed wisdom requires seeing reality clearly. Not through emotion. Not through fantasy. Reality. When you romanticize the past, you create an imaginary version of what was. And no real person can compete with an imaginary memory. Letting go becomes easier when you remember the whole truth. Not just the parts your emotions want to keep. The next lesson may be the most difficult one so far. Because it challenges something almost everyone struggles with. The need for closure. And that lesson alone has the power to free people from years of emotional suffering. Rule 4. Release the need for closure. One of the biggest reasons people remain trapped in emotional pain is because they keep waiting for closure. They wait for the apology, the explanation, the final conversation, the message that will somehow make everything make sense. But life does not always provide those things. There was once a woman who spent years wondering why a close relationship suddenly ended. No explanation. No warning. No clear reason. For years she replayed every memory, searching for answers. She imagined conversations that never happened. She created explanations in her mind. And every day, she remained emotionally attached to a chapter that had already ended. Then one day, while reading an old book, she came across a sentence that changed her life. Closure is not something you receive. It is something you create. That truth hit her deeply. Because she realized she had placed her peace in someone else's hands. The Stoics understood something powerful. You cannot control whether people explain themselves. You cannot control whether people apologize. You cannot control whether people provide understanding. But you can control whether you continue waiting. Sometimes closure arrives. Sometimes it never does. Either way, your life must continue. Do not place your healing on hold while waiting for another person to give you permission to move forward. Because peace begins the moment you stop waiting. And that brings us to another painful truth. Not everything people do is about you. Rule 5. Stop taking everything personally. Many people carry wounds that were never meant for them. Someone leaves. Someone becomes distant. Someone changes. And immediately they ask, "What is wrong with me?" But the Stoics taught that most human behavior has more to do with the person acting than the person receiving. There was once a teacher who noticed one of his students becoming cold and distant. The teacher blamed himself. He wondered if he had said something wrong. Done something offensive. Made some terrible mistake. Months later, he discovered the truth. The student had been struggling with personal problems completely unrelated to him. Yet he had spent months carrying guilt that never belonged to him. How often do we do the same thing? Someone's bad mood becomes our burden. Someone's rejection becomes our insecurity. Someone's decision becomes our self-worth. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that people act according to their own perceptions, experiences, fears, and limitations. Not everything is a reflection of you. Sometimes people leave because they are confused. Sometimes because they are growing. Sometimes because they are hurting. Sometimes because they simply choose a different path. Their decision may affect you. But it does not define you. The moment you stop making everything personal, emotional freedom begins. Because not every departure is an indictment of your value. And that leads directly to another difficult reality. Some relationships are not meant to last forever. Rule 6. Accept that some relationships expire. Nature teaches this lesson everywhere. Seasons change. Flowers bloom and fade. Day becomes night. Nothing remains exactly the same forever. Yet when relationships change, many people act as if permanence was promised. There was once a young man who had a childhood friend. For years they were inseparable. They shared dreams, secrets, experiences, memories. But as life moved forward, their paths began diverging. One pursued family life. The other pursued travel and adventure. Conversations became less frequent. Shared interests disappeared. Eventually, they became strangers connected only by memories. The young man fought this reality for years. He kept trying to force the friendship back into what it once was. But no matter how hard he tried, the relationship continued fading. One day an older mentor told him, "Not every relationship ends because someone failed. Some simply complete their purpose." That lesson changed everything. The Stoics believed attachment becomes suffering when we demand permanence from a changing world. Some people enter your life to teach. Some arrive to help you grow. Some appear when you need them most. And some leave after their role is complete. That does not erase the value they brought. It simply means the season has ended. The problem is not that relationships change. The problem is that we resist the change. And resistance often creates emotional debt. Rule 7. Protect your energy from emotional debt. Many people continue carrying relationships long after the relationship itself has ended. Not physically. Emotionally. They replay conversations. Revisit old wounds. Reopen old disappointments. Relive old betrayals. Again and again. It becomes emotional debt. A burden they continue paying long after the account should have been closed. There was once a traveler carrying a heavy sack over his shoulder. Every day he complained about the weight. Every day he grew more exhausted. Finally, another traveler asked him, "What is inside?" The man opened the sack. It was filled with rocks. Old rocks he had collected years ago. Rocks that served no purpose. Rocks he had simply become accustomed to carrying. The second traveler smiled and said, "Then why don't you put them down?" That question applies to many emotional burdens. How many old resentments are you still carrying? How many disappointments? How many betrayals? How many people continue living in your mind rent-free even though they left years ago? The Stoics believed suffering increases when we refuse to release what no longer serves us. Holding on to anger does not punish the other person. It punishes you. Holding on to resentment does not restore the relationship. It drains your energy. Every emotional burden consumes attention. And attention is one of your most valuable resources. Protect it carefully. Because in the next lesson, we explore something even deeper. A truth that separates emotionally strong people from emotionally trapped people. The difference between loving someone and needing someone. Rule 8. Learn the difference between love and attachment. Many people believe they are suffering because they love deeply. But often, they are suffering because they became attached. The difference is important. Love wishes the best for another person. Attachment demands that person remain part of your life. Love is freedom. Attachment is dependency. There was once a woman who loved a man deeply. When the relationship ended, she felt as though her entire world had collapsed. She stopped enjoying life. Stopped pursuing goals. Stopped recognizing herself. Years later, while reflecting on the relationship, she realized something painful. She had not only loved the person. She had built her entire identity around them. Their presence became her happiness. Their approval became her confidence. Their attention became her self-worth. When they left, she felt empty because she had forgotten who she was without them. The Stoics warned against this kind of dependence. Not because love is dangerous, but because losing yourself inside another person is. Healthy love enriches your life. Unhealthy attachment becomes your life. And when that attachment breaks, suffering follows. The strongest relationships are built between two whole people. Not two incomplete people trying to complete each other. Never allow your identity to become so attached to another person that their departure destroys your sense of self. Because your peace must belong to you first. And once you understand that, another truth becomes clear. You cannot move forward while constantly looking backward. Rule 9. Stop looking back at closed doors. One of the saddest things people do is spend years staring at doors that have already closed. They revisit old conversations. Old relationships. Old disappointments. Old endings. Meanwhile, life keeps presenting new opportunities they failed to see. There was once a traveler walking through a beautiful valley. As he walked, he kept turning around to stare at a mountain he had already passed. The mountain fascinated him, consumed his attention, captured his thoughts. Eventually, because he kept looking backward, he failed to notice a cliff directly ahead. His obsession with the past nearly cost him his future. How many people do the same thing emotionally? They become so focused on what they lost that they miss what is still possible. The Stoics believed life exists only in the present moment. The past can teach, but it cannot be lived again. No amount of thinking can change yesterday. No amount of wishing can reopen a chapter that has ended. Your energy belongs in the present. Your growth belongs in the present. Your future belongs in the present. The more attention you give to closed doors, the less attention you give to open ones. And often, the greatest opportunities in life appear only after we stop staring at what is gone. But moving forward requires another difficult skill: choosing peace over pride. Rule 10. Choose peace over being right. Many people remain trapped in emotional suffering because they need validation. They need acknowledgement. They need the other person to admit they were wrong. There was once a businessman involved in a bitter dispute with a former friend. Years passed. The conflict continued. Neither side would let go. Both wanted victory. Both wanted validation. Both wanted the final word. One day, the businessman met an elderly philosopher. After hearing the story, the philosopher asked a simple question. Would you rather be right, or would you rather be free? The question stunned him, because he realized he had sacrificed years of peace trying to win an argument that no longer mattered. The Stoics understood that ego often disguises itself as justice. Sometimes the need to prove a point keeps us emotionally chained to people who should no longer occupy our thoughts. Not every battle deserves your energy. Not every disagreement deserves your attention. And not every person deserves continued access to your peace. Freedom often begins when you stop demanding that others understand your side of the story. Because inner peace is worth far more than being declared right. And once you stop seeking validation from others, something extraordinary happens. You begin becoming complete on your own. Rule 11. Become whole on your own. This may be one of the most important lessons in the entire video. Because people who fear being alone often tolerate things that destroy their peace. Disrespect, neglect, manipulation, toxic relationships. All because they believe loneliness is worse. But the Stoics taught something powerful. A person who is comfortable alone becomes difficult to control. There was once a young man who jumped from relationship to relationship without pause. Every time one ended, he immediately searched for another. He feared being alone, feared silence, feared facing himself. Then one year, after a painful breakup, he decided not to rush into anything new. Cinematic conclusion: the quiet power of letting go. And so, after exploring these 12 Stoic rules, we arrive at a truth that many people spend their entire lives trying to understand. Letting go is not about forgetting someone. It is not about pretending they never mattered. It is not about becoming cold, bitter, or indifferent. True letting go is about reclaiming ownership of your peace. The Stoics understood something that most people today struggle to accept: every attachment carries a hidden cost. When we attach our happiness to another person's presence, approval, loyalty, or affection, we unknowingly place our emotional freedom into their hands. And the moment we do that, we begin to lose ourselves. Think about how much energy is wasted holding on to people who have already left emotionally. Think about the sleepless nights spent replaying conversations. The endless what-ifs. The imaginary scenarios. The desperate hope that one day things will return to what they once were. But life moves in only one direction. Forward. The river never flows backward. The seasons never reverse. And neither should you. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning that everything in life is temporary. The people we love, the opportunities we receive, the successes we celebrate, and even the challenges we fear are all passing through our lives like travelers on a long road. Nothing stays forever. And because nothing stays forever, clinging only creates suffering. The Stoic does not resist this reality. The Stoic embraces it. Because acceptance is freedom. When someone walks away from your life, you have a choice. You can spend years chasing answers. Or you can spend those years building yourself. You can remain trapped in yesterday. Or you can step into tomorrow. You can continue carrying the weight. Or you can finally set it down. The choice has always been yours. Imagine a traveler carrying a heavy bag filled with stones. Every mile becomes more painful. Every step becomes more exhausting. Yet when someone asks why he continues carrying it, he says, "Because I've carried it for so long." Many people do the same with emotional burdens. They carry old heartbreaks, old betrayals, old disappointments, old versions of themselves. Not because those things help them, but because they have become familiar. Yet familiarity is not a reason to suffer. At some point, wisdom requires us to put the bag down. Not because the stones were never important, but because they are no longer necessary. The strongest people are not those who hold on forever. The strongest people are those who know when to release what no longer serves them. That is not weakness. That is mastery. The ancient Stoics believed that every challenge carries an opportunity hidden inside it. Every ending creates space for a new beginning. Every loss teaches a lesson. Every farewell reveals a deeper truth about who we are. Perhaps the person you are struggling to let go of was never meant to stay forever. Perhaps they entered your life to teach you something. To reveal a strength you did not know you possessed. To show you where you needed to grow. To remind you of your own resilience. And once the lesson was complete, their role in your story came to an end. There is wisdom in accepting that not everyone is meant to walk beside you for the entire journey. Some people are chapters, not the whole book. Some people are lessons, not destinations. And some people leave precisely because life is preparing you for something greater than what you are losing. But you cannot receive what is waiting ahead if your hands are still clinging to what is already gone. The future requires open hands, open minds, open hearts. And that requires courage. The courage to move forward even when answers never come. The courage to choose peace over obsession. The courage to trust that your life is bigger than a single relationship, a single rejection, or a single disappointment. Remember this. Your value does not decrease because someone failed to see it. Your purpose does not disappear because someone walked away. Your future does not end because one chapter closes. You were whole before they arrived. And you remain whole after they leave. The Stoics understood that the greatest relationship you will ever have is the one you have with your own character. Everything else is uncertain. Character remains. Integrity remains. Wisdom remains. Self-respect remains. And when those things remain, you have everything you need to begin again. Years from now, the pain that feels overwhelming today may become the very thing that made you stronger. The heartbreak may become the lesson that transformed your life. The rejection may become the redirection that led you to a better path. The ending may become the beginning that changed everything. This is why the Stoic walks forward. Not because the journey is easy, but because standing still serves no purpose. Life is calling you forward, toward growth. So release the resentment. Release the regret. Release the need for closure from people who cannot give it. Release the desire to control what was never yours to control. And in that release, discover something extraordinary. Freedom. Because the moment you stop chasing what has left, you finally have the energy to build what can stay. And perhaps that is the greatest Stoic lesson of all. Some people will leave your life. Some opportunities will disappear. Some chapters will close forever. But as long as you keep your inner peace, you have lost nothing that truly matters. You still have your mind. You still have your character. You still have your purpose. And most importantly, you still have the power to choose how you respond. That power can never be taken from you. Guard it. Protect it. Build your life around it. And walk forward with confidence, knowing that what is meant for you will never require you to abandon your peace in order to keep it. If this message resonated with you, remember, the greatest victory is not holding on to someone who wants to leave. The greatest victory is remaining at peace after they do. And that is the Stoic way. Before you go, remember this. In a world where most people are distracted, emotional, and constantly seeking validation, choosing inner peace is a rare act of strength. Every time you choose discipline over impulse, wisdom over anger, and growth over attachment, you become a little stronger than you were yesterday. That is the journey we are taking together here on Focus and Conquer. If this video helped you see letting go from a new perspective, don't keep that wisdom to yourself. Take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Focus and Conquer, and turn on notifications so you never miss a lesson on Stoicism, self-mastery, discipline, and mental strength. And in the comments below, share this one word: peace. Let it be your commitment to protecting your inner calm, no matter what life places in your path. Thank you for spending these moments with me. Until next time, stay disciplined, stay focused, protect your peace, and keep conquering yourself, because the greatest victory is not over others, but over the weaknesses within. This is Focus and Conquer. See you in the next lesson.